Welcome back to episode 5 of Project 23. Project 23 is when we introduce and showcase different visionaries, entrepreneurs, and creatives in San Diego. And today I'm excited to interview an entrepreneur, a creative, a brand owner, and a husband. And today we're going to get to know about his story, his life, and where he's going for the future. And this is Alex.
Right.
So, Alex, I think we met maybe about a year ago, huh? Maybe
Yeah.
less than that, 8 months ago.
It's about a year ago.
Yeah, you started coming to church, and that's how we met.
Yep.
Got plugged in, and now, I mean, from when I first met you, you weren't a brand, you didn't have a business yet, right? And you and your wife came, and now here at church, you got to grow your faith. I've seen that journey. It's been beautiful to see you grow in your faith.
Thank you.
And just recently, I think a couple weeks ago, after a whole year, I actually got to know your story.
Yeah.
And it, truly it significantly impacted my life, my wife, and my life. And just to see your upbringing, your story, the shape, how it shaped your character, how you've grown so much since, you're going to share your testimony a little bit about yourself right now, but just to see and know who you were before to who you are today. And now that you're building a brand, a business, making shifts in your career, leaving certain things behind and stepping into a future God has called you to, I think it's going to be a story that God is currently writing right now.
Yeah.
That is going to be so worth to see, and to have the viewers see you today, but not just that, in 2-3 years when you come back on this podcast to see where you're at now. And but before we get into where you are right now in your future, why don't you share a little bit about your story, your upbringing? What did that look like? How were you raised? What environments were you in? And just so we know how your character has been shaped
Yeah.
to today.
So I grew up here in San Diego. I was born and raised. I grew up as far away from the church as I think anybody could. None of my family was religious, especially Christian. I grew up. My parents were addicts. I grew up in kind of a broken home. I lived with my grandparents mostly, who provided for me very well. But I think for anybody that grows up, without their mom and dad together, I think there's some types of issues that happen there. Especially with mine, like I said, mine were addicts and ended up kind of going to the streets. And I grew up as far away from the church as possible. Started getting into graffiti at an early age. Started writing graffiti, got in a graffiti crew, started getting into drugs myself. And I just was slowly I thought the purpose of life was just to, make myself be happy by using drugs and drinking and by doing things that I thought fulfilled me. And, at the end, none of it really did. And, yeah.
Yeah. So you're saying you grew up in a broken household, because I know exactly how that feels, man. Like my crazy story, real quick. My dad cheated on his wife with my mom, and they had a secret like relationship between his wife's back and her boyfriend at the time's back.
Wow.
And I think it's crazy to to see that the things we come from, bro. It's like there's no way we're supposed to be where we're at today,
Right.
based on what we've gone through.
Yeah.
And now you're sharing with the brokenness in the household, to getting into the drugs and the graffiti art, right,
Right.
and all that.
Yeah.
How were you introduced to all of it? Did you have like friends who were super involved with that? Were you always kind of
With
looking for,
graffiti?
or just in general, like that upbringing?
Just that whole, yeah. So, I mean, for one, graffiti in general, I mean, that whole culture is heavily, there's a big drug influence in that culture. I mean, most sober people don't go up on people's property and start spray painting it,
Yeah.
So, but, I think just growing up really confused, and also seeing, I would see my mom go through her struggles growing up. And, I think it kind of just almost numbed me, and it kind of almost taught me growing up that that's just how life was. You know, I saw people that were my mentors that were struggling with addiction, and I think it almost felt comfortable to an extent, of just seeing that all around me. And then I guess still searching for some type of mentorship and still searching for love, you know, ultimately. um I just started meeting people that were experimenting with drugs, and I think I was just trying to fill this void that ultimately only God ended up filling. But I was just trying to fill this void, and it just, yeah.
Yeah. When you say that you felt like you were trying to fill a void, I know as Christians and people of faith, we always mention that when we meet God, we know that the past was, hey, I was looking for love, I was looking for fulfillment.
Right.
During the time when you were looking for fulfillment, what did that feeling look like? How can you take me into that space and kind of describe the tangible feeling of feeling void?
Yeah.
So I think there's a lot of people who are gonna see this and not understand where they're at in life,
Right.
feel the voidness, but they don't know that that's voidness. They
Right.
don't know that they're missing something. Can you dive a little bit deep into that?
Yeah, I mean, I think I was trying to, you know, I mean, at that point in my life, I was just trying to, I thought, you know, I just felt empty. You know, I just felt like, I was just missing a big part of my life. I didn't know what my purpose was for life. You know, I didn't know what I was going to be. You know, I just, you know, I thought it was just, you know, wake up, make money, drink,
Yeah.
you know, do drugs, and then that was it. You know, hook up with girls, and you know, I thought I could hook up with this girl, and I thought I'd be happy, and I wasn't. You know, and then I would do drugs, and I thought, you know, at the time it would make me feel better. You know, and I felt good. But you know, I'd wake up the next day just feeling like crap, and just still felt empty no matter what I did. Just, it was just this never-ending cycle of just, you know, of just trying to fill something that, yeah, ultimately was never enough.
Yeah. And then that cycle, that repetitive cycle, I feel like people they they struggle with that. They don't know how to break out of that. They don't know how to get out of that. So I know you encountered the Lord. Before we well actually share how when is it at what point did you feel like you hit rock bottom or you capped out? You're like, I need a solution. I need something where that led you to God. What was that pivotal moment?
Honestly, there was many moments, man, now that I
Okay.
look back.
Dude, share.
Yeah, I mean, you know, I could say at the peak of my addiction, at least, you know, I think that's what really started my soul searching. Was like I said, I just felt like I was in this never-ending cycle where, you know, I was addicted to cocaine for a long time, and I knew that I wanted to stop, and I couldn't. You know, I couldn't stop. Even before I was saved, I was praying, you know, to something. I didn't know what it was, but I just knew that I had no control over myself, and I wanted to stop. And you know, I would tell my friends like, I'm done. I don't want to do this anymore. And then that same night, I would do it again, and it was just this cycle that never stopped. And so, but when I first got saved, you know, I was praying to God. You know, I didn't realize I was praying to God, but I was praying, and I kept asking for God to just put something in my life to just take it away. And I ended up meeting my wife, um, and we had grown a relationship. We started to get to know each other more, and she, you know, after about a year or so, she was a Christian. She was raised a Christian, and she would kind of always ask me, you know, oh, my dad wants us to go up to his church with him. And you know, at first I would just start laughing at her. You know, I was just kind of, yeah, like I was just like, you know, like I was like, I didn't believe in God, so I was like, you know, I've seen a lot of bad things in my life, so you know, I would, in my head I was like, if there's a God, like why would all these things have happened? You know, so I was just,
Crazy.
yeah, you know, so I at first, you know, I didn't want to, but she never pushed me. She never forced me. She'd always bring it up every now and then whenever her dad offered. And you know, after I grew love for my wife, you know, because I loved her, I was like, you know what, this is important to her. I'm gonna do it because I love her.
Yeah.
And so that was the first step that I took, was just, doing it because I loved my wife. And then first church I ever really went to willingly, I guess is the best way to put it, was the Ark in Montebello, the Ark in Montebello. And I just remember at the end, the pastor gave an altar call and just said that, if you want Jesus to save you, that he asks us to publicly declare that he is Lord and Savior.
Amen.
And it was crazy, bro. Like, I had this supernatural experience where, like, it was almost like God was screaming at me, but without screaming at me. Like, it was just the most stern voice that was telling me, like, you need to go up there right now. And it was just like, at first I was like, is this real? Like, what's happening right now? And then it just, like, the more time went by, it was almost like an alarm clock was, like, slowly dying. It was like, this is your moment. Like, you need to go. And so pushed everyone aside, ran up there, and it was just the most overwhelming peace and calmness and clarity I've ever felt in my life, bro. And yeah, and I think, growing up my whole life, my family was atheist. I grew up atheist. Religion was, you were, I hate to say it, but you were kind of dumb if you thought, Christianity was the truth. And so I kind of realized after that moment that my opinion was formed because other people had told me what Christianity was.
But
I never looked into it myself. Yeah. And so I took that step in just realizing, like, I never looked into this myself. Like, if I'm going to come up to this conclusion, like, I want to do it because I looked into it, not because somebody told me.
Of course.
And the more I looked into this stuff, like, the more I looked, and I didn't just look into Christianity, I looked into all religions, and I was just like, what's reliable about this? Why do people, claim this religion, and why don't they? Why do they claim, Islam or whatever? And just the more I look into it, the more you discover that, yeah, I mean, the Bible is extremely reliable. And it's a historical book, that has different types of writing in it. And yeah, it was just, yeah, I think that was a pivotal moment for me.
Yeah.
Oh.
I think, bro, your story is probably one of, like, it's a testimony that's so, I guess everyone's testimony is unique.
Right.
Everyone's testimony is beautiful. But yours, man, in that aspect is challenging because you grew up atheist.
Right.
You were in the environment. You didn't grow up in a Christian household.
Yeah.
For a reason, I thought you did, but
No,
you was.
I did not.
So you were fun of you believed in fate.
Yeah.
This was a fairy tale to them.
Yeah.
To people around you. Not just that, you didn't have the support of faith, but you also didn't have the support of friends because they brought you into their drug abuse, the bad habits, doing certain things and going out and doing crazy stuff.
Right.
And when you were hitting rock bottom, or you were kind of cappy, like hitting your cap of I'm done with this. When you shared that with your friends, like, what do they do? Like, were they like, oh, you'll be fine, bro? Or were they?
Well, a lot of my friends too were drug dealers. So I think part of it, I mean, looking back, I don't know, that's kind of a tough question because I did grow a relationship with them, and I want to say that our whole friendship wasn't based on drugs, but I don't talk to any of them anymore.
Dude, that's crazy.
So yeah, I mean, I try to reach out to some of them sometimes, but I think a lot of them, the ones that weren't drug dealers, I should say, were, they definitely felt the same way. Because, I would have hearts to heart with them, as men, and I would, I think everybody that's going, maybe not everybody, but, at least for what I've seen growing up in that environment is, like I said, I mean, a lot of people are trying to fill this void. And I think when you're doing it with someone, that's kind of what you're bonding on, is let's fill this void together, and I think they knew that. I think they wanted to stop, but yeah, I mean, I don't know. It was just like, oh, let's not stop, and then something happened.
It's a lifestyle.
Yeah, it's a lifestyle, and then somebody shows up with something, and next thing you know, you're doing it again, and so it's just easy. It was there,
Of course.
So
Wow.
Yeah.
How old were you when you were getting rock bottom? When you were to make that transition of meeting your wife
just a couple years ago, bro. I'm gonna be 28 this year. We've been together for 3 years, so it's just about 3 or 4 years ago.
Wow.
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah, it was very, very recent.
Wow. But just to see, I met you last year, bro.
Yeah.
I would have never imagined you.
Yeah,
Like, it's crazy. That's wild.
yeah,
Dude, so you were like 25, 26, kind of leaving that lifestyle
yeah.
and then stepping into your faith.
Mhm.
You had a radical encounter with the Lord, shifted things around. And then what was that time frame when you met the Lord to me, or you met your girlfriend, you met the Lord? When did you guys get married? I'm assuming that was pretty fast.
It was pretty quick, yeah. So, yeah. So I had met my wife. I was living with my aunt at the time, and then it's funny. I got COVID, and I was, spending a lot of time with my wife. I was staying over at her place, and I got COVID, and I pretty much never left after I got COVID. So I moved in.
Oh, no.
That, yeah. And but yeah, I mean, so after I got saved, that's when conviction really started hitting me. I had got saved, and I started looking into all these religions, and I was still smoking weed, I was still drinking. But I started noticing little by little God was just convicting me more and more. And it wasn't conviction as like, you're going to hell and you're, a POS or whatever, but it was just like it was more of like I just remember distinctly too. There was one time where I was smoking, and I just remember like we had gone to church or something, and we came back and I smoked, and I just remember the guilt that I felt afterwards, and I was just like, man, like I'm not doing what God's asking me to do. And so it was just little things like that. And yeah, it was the second year, coming on the second year of us being together. I just remember I looked at my wife and I was like, we shouldn't sleep together right now. Like, we need to, I feel like the best way to honor God right now is to be holy because he's asking us to be holy. And I think, to solidify this, we need to get married. And so it was pretty quick. Yeah, it was about just within the second year from us being together.
That's
Yeah.
it's wild, bro, to hear that from you.
Yeah.
With your upbringing, lifestyle, how everything shifted to the big major changes in your life to now one day, not too long ago, you were I don't know if I believe, maybe I'm stuck in this lifestyle, I'm trying to get out, I don't know, to hey, I shouldn't sleep with my girlfriend anymore because God is convicted, the Lord is convicting me. And I think it's so important to highlight that as Christians, but people of faith, because oftentimes we're so quick to judge each other.
Yeah.
We're so quick to, hey, like, you shouldn't be doing that.
Right.
Alex, you shouldn't be sleeping with a girl.
Right.
You're not married, this, and that.
Right.
But no one ever told you that.
Right.
It was the Holy Spirit.
Yeah.
And that's how you know that the miracle is happening in your heart, when the Holy Spirit is speaking to you.
Yeah.
And gracefully convicting and telling you, hey, this is not what I want for your life.
Yeah.
And this is where you should do. And that's to live in covenant.
Right.
Not only with your wife, but with the Lord. When you live in covenant with the Lord, it's a lifestyle of consecration.
Yep.
It's, hey, I am separating myself for you, God.
Yeah.
And that's what holy is I'm sanctified. I am moving myself away from the things of lifestyle of this world and becoming one with the Lord and being, I'm not perfect, but the decision I can make today can make me right with the Lord.
Yeah.
Therefore, everything and everyone around me will be influenced by that.
Yeah.
Hence, your girlfriend becoming your wife, becoming as one in covenant living.
Yeah.
Now, when that happens, the way I imagine it to be is that it's a pair of scissors cutting the rope that's been dragging you, that you've been dragging your past with you. But when you make that decision to follow the Lord,
Yeah.
when you declare his name, that Jesus is Lord and that he is Lord of your life, your past no longer defines you.
Right.
2 Corinthians 5:17, you are now a new creation.
Yeah.
And because you stepped into this world where it's this new lifestyle as a new creation, God is now preparing and producing fruit around you, or preparing something, your future, to now take you to, or he's giving you a clearer vision
Right.
to you to where you're going to be.
Yeah.
And in my experience, that's how it happened when I accepted the Lord, when I made the Lord in my life. God took away the past, where the enemy tried to make that past define who I am today.
Yeah.
But he took that away. The Lord took it away so that I can see a future ahead.
Yeah.
And that's when I started my business.
Wow.
That's when I started believing. That's when I started dreaming. That's when I knew that my poverty, my passive of poverty mindset of living paycheck to paycheck, or
Yeah.
trying to figure out life, ended, and the Lord gave me a blueprint of what my future is going to look like.
Wow.
It's still hard.
Yeah.
It's still going to be tough, right?
Sure.
But now there's a blueprint, and now I'm going to walk forward in faith, knowing that what God is doing in my life in the next 20, 30 years, it's going to be different. It's going to change, right? And since you have turned your life around for the Lord, what was new that came? What changed? What happened?
Oh man.
What were like? What's that blueprint that God presented before you after giving your life to Him?
Well, I mean, I've just noticed that the more I've been obedient to what His Word says and in prayer, what He reveals to me, that more has happened in my life. I mean, I went from being a graffiti writer where I was destroying people's property, and I started my own clothing brand now, where I still use the things that I loved, because I mean, my whole life I was the kid in class who was doodling on his paper instead of paying attention, and I started this brand, and I still loved graffiti. The art itself isn't bad. It's just the culture that it is, and I wanted to make something that would honor God. And, especially for guys like me who grew up on the streets and did drugs and, did all these things, for me, I wanted to start this brand because there's a lot of, faith-based clothing brand out there.
Yeah.
But for guys like me who don't necessarily want to wear a shirt that just says "I heart Jesus," which there's nothing wrong with that. It's a great message, but for guys like me, that's just not really our style.
You know what you mean?
Yeah. but yeah, man. I mean, I wanted to make something that represents God, in using the gifts that He gave me.
Wow.
And so yeah.
That's beautiful. You were once a graffiti artist.
Yeah.
Involved with the wrong people.
Yeah.
But what's beautiful is that the Lord redeemed that.
Exactly.
Still use that gift and talent.
Yeah.
And is still using the same thing for the blueprints creating.
Yeah.
He's just your brand now.
Yeah.
What's the name of your
Rep the Lamb.
Rep the Lab?
Yeah.
Oh, somebody Rep the Lab.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So all of the skills and talent you had back in the day, you're now applying that to Rep the Lab.
Yes, sir.
That's awesome, though. And what's your dream, bro? What's your vision for this business? What do you see it becoming in the next 5 and 10 years? Like, what does that look like to you?
I mean, honestly, man, it's whatever's in God's will, ultimately. But, I mean, my dream is to have a shop where, I made this brand because I want people to stop and see my shirt. And because it's not just a regular, I Heart Jesus shirt, people see it and they're like, I want them to stop and think, like, whoa, like, that's pretty cool, like, why is it like that? And then when they look deeper into it, they're like, wow, that's Jesus. So, I mean, my dream is really my mission period is Matthew 28:19, to go and spread the word and make disciples amongst all nations, but I think my ultimate dream would be to have my own shop, to have my own space, to just sell my merch, have a spot where people can come and hang out and maybe have Bible studies and stuff there, whatever. But just have my own shop is really just the dream with the business. So
nice, girl. So having a shop, people maybe drink some coffee too.
Yeah. Yeah. I'll be next door.
And bro, I wanted to, I brought it to you before, but I want to tell you again. I want your merch here at the shop.
Yeah. Let's do it.
I want some of your t-shirts here.
Yeah.
Oh, when people come in, Shepherd's Coffee, they can see Rep the Lab.
Let's do it.
And that's awesome, bro. I'm excited to see how this mission is gonna unravel in the future, and how many people's lives are going to be impacted and changed by Rep the Lamb.
That's what I pray for, bro.
I believe it, bro. I see it. And when people come in the shop here at Shepherd's, they're gonna see that. They're gonna see your testimony here.
I appreciate it, man.
Alex, Rep the Lamb. He's doing something as well, especially with your testimony, bro. It's beautiful.
I appreciate it. I wouldn't want it in any other spot. This is the perfect spot.
Thank you, man.
That's awesome.
Bro, thank you so much for sharing your story.
No worries.
I'm sure people are going to be impacted by this.
I really.
And I'm looking forward to what this whole year of 2026 is going to bring to you. Like what God is going to do in your life. And I hope I get to be a part, Shepherd's gets to be a part of, repping the brand as well.
I appreciate it, man.
And maybe have you back. We'll have you back next year.
Yeah. Let's let
Know
know
where you're at with everything that we show people.
Let's do it.
That you're a dreamer, you're a visionary, you're an entrepreneur, and God placed on your heart. Believe the things that Lord has do for you will succeed.
I appreciate it, man. In Jesus' name.
Thank you, bro. Why don't you let the people know where can we find you?
Yeah.
Media outlets. How do we find your brand and you?
Yeah, so you can go Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, Facebook, all at Rep the Lamb. Or you can go to repthelambapparel.com to find my merch.
Thank you, bro.
Yep.
See you next time.
Thank you, sir.